Well, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel. Now today we unfortunately have a scheduled power outage, hence the generator running, which is very noisy indeed. So as I can't do any work on the computer upstairs because this is just running the essential things in the house, not the computer, I thought I'd take this opportunity just to do a quick video, a bit about me and why I am interested and why I like these old cars. A little while back someone asked me to do like an about me video, and I thought, well, I'm not really sure if anyone wants to watch that, but as I can't do much today, it seems like a good opportunity as any just to give it a bit of a go and just give you a bit of an idea of my background and how I fell into and became obsessed by old cars. Okay, well, we've escaped down here to the bottom of the garden, and hopefully the generator running in the background isn't too much of a distraction. But like I say, in response to one of the videos I posted a little while ago, someone did say, have you actually done an about me video, i.e. about me, my background and why I run the Old Classic Car websites, the forum, Facebook, Twitter, and of course the YouTube channel. Now, the website has never been about me. It's easy to fall into that trap of making all the content about, ooh, look at me, ooh, you know, and I think quite a few people even on YouTube still fall into that trap today, but it's always been not about me, but about the things I'm interested in. Now, the Old Classic Car website was set up back in late 2001. It actually started out as a small 4 or 5 page website called Jalopy, and that's where I first sort of got my head around how you actually set up a website, registering domain names, all that kind of thing. And in late 2001 I registered the domain name Old Classic Car. I don't know how I came up with the name other than at the time I still am interested in optimizing websites for search engines for them to work well in the search results. And at the time it was a good idea to include certain keywords in your domain name, so I couldn't decide whether to have old car or classic car, and I'm not quite sure what was available, so I ended up going with Old Classic Car, which seemed like a good idea, and that's stuck for the last 20 plus years. Now, winding back a little bit, my background has always been in IT. I've never worked in a garage, I've never been a mechanic. I enjoy tinkering with all this stuff, all the old cars, but I've never had any professional training, as regulars to the channel will probably spot. But no, it's always been computing. I started out with a Sinclair ZX81, a Spectrum, an Acorn Electron, and at school they had BBC Model Bs in the mid to the sort of late 1980s. Now, what I did do is, and this interest in IT actually helped me fund the resurrection of my first project car, if you like, which was a 1967 or 68 Triumph Spitfire, a Mark III car. Dad paid £25 for it in 1985. We dragged it home. Everything had been taken apart. It was a rolling shell on the chassis, but every last nut and bolt had been taken off. The engine was full of oil, brimmed with oil. It was a complete wreck, really. Dad chopped the sills and the floors out because they were all rotten, and then he passed it over to me to carry on with in about 1986, 1987. Now, at the time I was doing my O-levels, so back to computers for a minute, and rather than do a simple project using the school's BBC Model B computers, I was fortunate enough to have access and use of an early IBM PC compatible computer which Dad got through work. It was an Advance 86B, a huge hulking great thing, massive thing, one 5¼ inch floppy disk drive, and later it had a hard disk. And when the hard disk came along and you could have several applications stored on the hard disk, that is when I came up with the idea for XT Manager. Now, this was my O-level project and I wrote this in BASIC and compiled it so that you could run it, because back in those days, before Windows became really popular, it was all command line driven from DOS, so you'd have to remember what folder your word processor or your spreadsheet system was in, so you'd have to change directory into there, remember what the executable file name was that you'd have to run to fire up your spreadsheet or your word processor, and it could be a bit of a mare. So I came up with this idea, and this was basically a front end for DOS, a bit like Windows became. So this allowed you to have one screen, a bit like that one. You'd have one screen, and then you could configure it so that you'd have all your applications, your calculator, spreadsheet, whatever, diary, all this kind of thing, on a menu. And instead of having to remember what folder and file names you needed in order to fire up these applications. You could just pick it from the menu, and that's how that worked. So that was my O-level project, and what I did, I submitted that to Personal Computer World magazine. Now that was a business computing magazine back in the day. They may still be going, I don't know. But they used to feature programs, user or reader submitted programs, and they would pay you for that. So what I did is I submitted my O-level project, and they featured it in their business computing magazine as Program of the Month. Now that was quite handy because they'd print out, publish all the listings for the coding so people could type it in and have their own copy of that software on their own computer and use it, which was a great idea. But the beauty of it was they would pay £50 per page for the listings that they included in their magazine. Now it ran to many, many pages, and that combined with some royalties from selling the software on 5 1/4, a bit like this, the old 5 1/4 floppy disks. Who remembers those? But that's what they used to also send them out to subscribers and things on. So combined it made me about £600, which was in 1987. I was still at school. That was a handy sum of money, and at the time I was piecing back together this Triumph Spitfire, which was KED 453F, which is still around. I'm still in touch with the current owner of it. So that interest in IT and my O-level project funded the resurrection of that car, the Triumph Spitfire. And I actually did the same with my A-level project a couple of years later. I sent that off to Personal Computer World, and they also published that. I didn't make as much from that, but every little helps. So that is how I got into classic cars. Now, Dad had always been a home tinkerer. He was always working on his car or neighbour's car, so I picked things up along the way. And it was a Spitfire in 85, 86 that sort of got my hands dirty with old cars for the very first time. Now, learning to drive, because I started learning to drive late in 1987 when I was 17. And I'd already learnt to drive off-road in Mum's mini estate. She had an E-Reg mini estate from the 1960s. And it was around about the late 1987-ish that the Austin A40 came along. This was actually this 1960 A40, which is just here in the garage, came along because my great uncle had to give up driving, and he'd bought it new from Pikes of Exeter in 1967. Now there are several videos on the channel about the A40, so I won't go into it in too great a depth here, but basically I had a couple of lessons in the A40, and in December 87, I think it was December the 22nd, 1987, I took my test in the little Austin in and around Didsbury in South Manchester, and I passed. So that was a great day. So to begin with, I ran the Austin A40 as my daily car, and I did for several years on and off. At the time I was piecing the Spitfire back together, and that got back on the road in I think 1989, so I ran the two of them alongside each other for a while. Then the A40 came off the road, I ran the Spitfire, and then other cars have come along since then. I bought a Volvo Amazon for £50. I went out to buy a loaf of bread while we were camping over in North Wales, and went to a local village shop, and down the side was YKA 750J, dark blue 4-door Volvo Amazon 121. So I got talking to the owner of the shop, paying him £50, and I bought that. I had to resurrect that, I had to replace the wings, the doors, the front panel. They were a bit rusty, but parts were sort of fairly easily available back then, pretty much as they are now, and I ran that for quite a while as well. So it was, just to sort of summarise, it was my interest in computing that funded my early days tinkering and getting into the world of classic cars and old cars, and ever since then I've been fairly obsessed by the subject as a whole, not just the cars, the trucks, motorbikes, etc. Even the old trailers. I'm really fond of old trailers, which you may have seen if you've ever visited the old classic car website, which I strongly recommend. But yeah, that's kind of where it all started for me. I've always been interested in the cars and the world that they lived in when they were still current. So that's why I've always had a great interest in the old black and white photographs of the cars, with tons of them feature on the website, on the Old Classic Car website, and in several of the videos here on the YouTube channel, on the Old Classic Car YouTube channel. They also make quite a regular appearance too. So, if you have any interest in the history of cars and the memorabilia that relates to cars, please go and have a look at the Old Classic Car website when you've finished here. A quick Google for Old Classic Car will bring it up. But it's not just the website. Like I say, I set that up late in 2001, and I've run it solo ever since. There's the website, There are the Twitter pages for Old Classic Car, the Facebook pages for Old Classic Car, the forum I set up several years later, I think that was about 2006 or 7, somewhere like that, because at the time there weren't that many forums covering the cars that I was interested in. And it's the same with the main site. Back in 2000, 2001, the internet was way smaller than it is now, and there was nothing really around online that sort of covered the interests that I had and have still. And that was the main reason for setting the website up. And even now, even though there's millions more websites around than there were back then, I kind of think that OCC has its own little niche where it's not just about the cars, but it's about the history of them and society when these cars were current. You know, I love looking at the old photographs and studying the fashions, looking to see how the streets have changed, the street furniture, the road signs, traffic lights, signs on buildings, and so on. It's just something I really, really like, and this has propelled and fueled the website and the YouTube channel and everything else all the way along for the last 20 plus years. And I hope over that time I've been able to share my interest through the website with other people out there who enjoy this kind of thing too. Now, let me know in the comments if this kind of thing is of interest to you. Have you actually had a look at the Old Classic on our website? I know it's a little bit creaky in places now because some of it was set up 20 odd years ago and things have changed a lot since then, but I've always tried to keep the coding fairly simple so that it doesn't become out of date really quickly, because many technologies have come and gone in the world of building websites since I started out doing this. Now, you may wonder, why did I even set up the YouTube channel? Now, I actually started publishing videos because I've always been interested in creating online content, whether it's articles for the website, forum posts, all this kind of thing. And video and YouTube is just a natural progression from publishing static pages about things that I'm interested in. And that's where that came along. Now, about 12 years ago I set up the YouTube channel, give or take, published a few videos, and then I kind of let it lie for a while, and the videos just sort of bumbled along in the background, and I didn't really pay too much attention to the YouTube channel. I was focusing more on creating content for the Old Classic Car website itself. Now, when we had lockdown came in was it March 2020, so just over 2 years ago, all that, I thought, well, what am I going to do? Because there's only so much content I can create statically with photographs and writing about classic cars, vintage cars, and so on. So I thought I would blow off the dust and the cobwebs from the YouTube channel and see if I could do a bit more with that, see if I could build that up, because not being able to go anywhere, no shows on, no meets allowed, you weren't allowed to meet anyone or speak to anyone, I kind of needed something to sort of fill the gap and keep me occupied and distracted while all this madness was going on. So I can't remember, I think I've probably even lost the login details for the YouTube channel, so I had to sort of reset all that up again, have a look at some of the existing videos, one of which did actually really quite well. And I thought, right, what shall I do? So I started publishing videos about some of the cars that we've got here, whether it's the A40, the big Dodge truck, the vintage Dodge Tourer that we've got here, the one with the wooden wheels, and hopefully you'll get a chance to maybe have a look around at some of the videos that I did even early on, just to see how the channel kind of progressed to where it is now. Obviously none of this would have worked, the website, the forum, anything else, and now the YouTube channel, none of this would have worked without the support of and encouragement of people out there watching this kind of thing and supporting it, commenting on it and so on. So that has always been really, really appreciated, and I still appreciate that, and I don't take any of that for granted, because you know, time's precious. People only have a finite amount of time during their day, and if they're willing to spend a bit of time looking at the content I create on the website or here on YouTube, I think that is just fantastic, and I so thank everyone for doing that. That is really, really cool. So now I think I'll just have a quick talk about where I'm at with the old cars, trucks and so on at this moment in time. So what's the current state of the fleet at the moment? Well, there's the A40, which I've already mentioned. That's been with me in the family since 1960. It's a bit of a long-term project. I've got most of the parts for it. I just need to find the time to actually crack on with it. I may end up having to sell something in order to pay someone to crack on with that, or at least do the bulk of the work. We need to see a little bit about that one. So there's the A40 Farina. That's 1960. There's this MGB here, which I did a video about fairly recently. That's 1977 factory development car. There's quite a lot of information in the other video, so I won't drone on about it here. There is a Commer Superpoise lorry, 1950. That will have to go off to a new home because I'm not going to get on with that anytime soon. So that's those three. In the main garage there's the big Dodge truck, which I've had since 1995, and I had restored in the late 2000s, which was quite an interesting project. Oh, there's a tractor just driving past, that's really handy. Talking of tractors, there's a grey Fergie. Back to Dodges, in addition to the big Dodge truck, which is a 3-ton 1940 truck. Thank you. There is the little Ford Anglia, of which there are many videos on the channel, the little grey Ford Anglia from 1952. There's a 1932 Morris Minor 2-seat Tourer, which I've had, must be 13, 14 years now, something like that. I know Junior was about this big, and I've got a photo of him in the back of the car when we went to actually go and collect the Morris, so it must be 13 years ago, something like that. So most of these cars have actually been with me a very long time indeed. What else have we got? The Mk3, that was bought last year from a former neighbour. I'd known that car for quite a long time, and years ago my wife, she had a couple of Mk3 Mark 1s, and when this one became available, and I knew it was quite a nice little car, even though it looked filthy and covered in muck and dirt in the owner's shed, I knew it would be quite a good car, so that's why I bought that last year. And I think that's pretty much it for the interesting cars. There are a couple of moderns, but I'm not really interested in talking about those too much. So that's really where I am. Oh, there's also the little Ford E83W van. One of the very first vehicles I bought in 1989 was a Ford sit-up and beg E83W pickup truck. We actually went camping the same place I was camping at when I found the Volvo Amazon when we went to buy a loaf of bread. In the bottom field of this campsite there were some Morris Minors, and at the time I was in the A40, and the owner of the campsite said, "Oh, if you've got the A40, it's very similar engine and running gear to some Morris Minors. Now in the bottom field I've got some Morris Minors sat there rotting away. If there's anything there you need, just let me know." So we traipsed down the hill, and so yes, there were several Morris Minors and Morris Minor Travellers disintegrating into a Welsh hillside, but amongst them was this little 1955 or 56 steel-backed Ford 1000 weight pickup truck, little sit-up and beg number, and I just fell in love with it. As soon as I saw it I thought, wow, that is just phenomenal. A friend of mine actually owns it now. He's got it stashed away in a barn a couple of miles from here. But that again was one of my earliest finds when it came to sort of old vehicles, and it was in quite a state. It had been sat in this field for a long time, but I was able to research some of the history of it after I bought it from the gentleman that had it, and yeah, that was a really interesting little find, and that led to me setting up a website for E83W van and pickup vans, which is still running today. It doesn't get updated all that often, e83w.co.uk. That was just another little sort of fun site that I set up, really again just to share my interest in E83Ws, and that is why, tucked away there, I've got the little green E83W van that I introduced in a video a little while back now. So go and have a look at that. I have actually set up a playlist just for the vehicles that I and we here own. So if you go and check that playlist out, Cars at OCC I think it's called, you'll see videos just about the things that I'm interested in and that we own here ourselves, so please check that out when you're finished here. But anyway, I hope this little video just gives a bit of background into me. I mean, my name's Rick Jones, I'm not sure if I actually mentioned that or not, but yeah, my name's Rick Jones, and I've been running this for a long time now, and I hope to continue running it for quite a lot longer with your support, encouragement, likes, feedback, comments on the videos, comments on the website, subscribers are always good. That helps keep the channel afloat, and hopefully I'll be able to produce a lot more content which a few of you will find of interest. So that's me, that's my background, my interests in the old cars and how I got into them in the first place, and I hope that wasn't too boring. So thank you very much for watching. Please check out some of the other videos on the channel. There are hundreds of videos on there now, and might even be one or two that are of interest. Try the site search and you might be surprised what pops up. So thank you very much for watching. More videos along very, very soon, so bye for now.